This video is sponsored by Loupedeck. Hey guys, Irene here, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I will show you how I added one of my portraits from start to finish. This is an updated 2022 Photoshop tutorial. A lot of you guys asked for it, so here it is. And I will also show you how I incorporate my Loupedeck CT console into my editing together with my Wacom tablet, two things I can't edit without anymore. So let's just get started. So I start my editing in Digital Photo Professional 4. This is Canon's free software, similar to Lightroom or Camera Raw, where you can convert your RAWs and do some quick adjustments on them. That's pretty much almost all the same stuff, like, there's your tone curve, and you can adjust the white balance and some other adjustments. But the only reason why I actually prefer this over Adobe is because it actually gives me really nice colors from the start, and it makes sense because this is the native Canon software. I'm going to show you the difference. So here is the Adobe color profile that it shows me on this raw image, which is terrible. It's like green and muted, and even if I try to do some camera matching and choose like actual profiles here, like even the portrait looks the most okay to me, but it still doesn't look the same as here. The grass is way too green. It's kind of a weird unnatural green color for some reason, and the blacks, like the shadows, look really dark and just, I don't know, it just doesn't look like this is a good starting point to me. Whereas this looks like the perfect starting point. I'm very, very particular about my colors, and this is the reason why I use this software. You can just download it from any Canon's website. And like I said, it's absolutely free. I'm not going to be doing any adjustments here with colors or anything like that. The only thing I always check is to make sure that it's not applying some auto corrections with the noise reduction or the sharpening. I don't like any auto sharpening. I don't like when the image is sharpened too much from the start. So I'm gonna reduce these to like a 1, I think. The sharpening here to 1. And the noise is already at 1. And that looks good. And the reason why I don't like to add these noise reduction filters, because sometimes it makes the image look really blurry and it takes away some of the detail. I would rather have a little bit more grain than the image looking a little bit like blurry and unnatural. So that's ready, and I'm just gonna press Tools and then transfer to Photoshop and start the edits in Photoshop. Alright, so now that we're in Photoshop, the first thing I usually do is the crop. There were other images that had better crop than this one. As you can see, it's kind of off-center, but I really like the expression in this image, and I'm just going to show you how to correct the crop if that happens to you. So I actually want the model to be in the middle, so I'm going to fix the crop and put it around like this, I think, maybe just a little bit more. Yeah, I think that looks good right here. There's a few different ways you can fill out this space right here. The first one is to stretch the corners, and you guys have seen me do this multiple times. So I just selected the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm gonna select this area, actually a little bit more, this area right here, making sure that I'm not selecting any of the body parts of the model, because we do not want to stretch those. And now we're going to right click, free transform, right click, distort, and we're going to grab this little square right here and move it. Now, if I move it all the way, it just looks a little bit weird. It looks a little bit stretched out. The grass doesn't look too bad actually, but at the top, as you can see, the bokeh looks really stretched out. So we're not gonna do it all the way. We're gonna leave it about, oops. Actually, don't do that. We're gonna leave it around here, I think. I'm actually gonna make the crop a little bit smaller here. I think, yeah, like this, actually. I think that's better. Okay, so now we still have this tiny little space that we need to fill out, and I'm actually going to use Content Aware Fill for that. And here's where Loupedeck comes in. I programmed one of the buttons to do Content Aware Fill for me. So I select the area that I want to fill, and then I just press Content Aware Fill, and it just does it for me. It's just that simple and so easy. It doesn't look that great right now, so I'm just gonna take the lasso tool and just take little pieces and do the content aware fill kind of manually on spots where I don't think it looks very nice. And look how easy it is with the Loupedeck. I'm just like selecting and pressing. And usually, if I want to do that, I would have to select, then I would have to right click, fill, and then press OK. So that's just a lot more clicking than just like select and click, select and click. Okay, so I'm just gonna do some more here where the grass doesn't look this nice. Oh man, this grass is a little bit of a... Okay, that looks much better. So I'm just fixing some areas where I feel like it didn't do a very good job, like it kind of like doubled it up or looks a little bit funky. I find that content aware fill looks a lot better in like smaller batches than like a one big fill. So you can try one big fill, and then if that doesn't work, you can just do what I did with like small little tiny ones. Okay, so that actually looks really nice. I'm very happy with that. So the next thing I'm going to do is some liquify. But before I do that, I'm going to duplicate my layer, and I program one of the buttons on Loupedeck to do that. Just make it easier. And I'm going to go and press liquify as well on the Loupedeck. And it's going to open the liquify window for me. What I want to do here is make the dress a little bit bigger so that it looks like it's more windswept. And I'm going to be liquefying this whole area. Now I'm going to take the freeze mask tool right here, and I'm going to put it all over her arm because I do not want to liquefy the arm. And I'm going to be getting close to this area when I'm going to be liquefying the dress. So I'm just masking out her arm. And now I can just go back to the warp tool, make it really big, and now I can just warp the dress. And I'm just warping it up to make it look like it's more windswept. Now, something that's really annoying to me is that the liquify window just always has like a lot of problems for me in the software. Like I can't, like my Wacom doesn't work great. Here, like I'm pressing doesn't work. And same with the Loupedeck. It doesn't really work with the liquify window. And when I asked the Loupedeck team about it, they told me that it's the Adobe software that doesn't let them. So it's pretty annoying. Now I see why my Wacom also doesn't work very well with the liquify filter, but that's like the only spot where it doesn't really work. So here's the dress. I think that looks so much better. And I'm also going to fix this hair right here. I don't know, it just looks a little bit weird to me, the way like the wind is picking it up. I want to make it look a little bit more like wavy and have like a better curve to it. I know that these are like very little things that probably like people are not going to notice from the start, but trust me, like everything is in the details, right? So I always encourage my students to be very detail oriented and fix even like tiny little things like that, because in the end, it's going to make a big difference. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So this is the before and after on that. So we're going to press OK. And now, as you can see, it did warp the grass just a little bit here. So I'm just going to take an eraser tool and I'm going to just erase the grass over here. You might have noticed that I'm using this wheel to make the brush smaller or bigger. I programmed it here in my Loupedeck, and it just makes it so much easier. Like, it's so responsive. Look at that. If you add it a lot, it's a must. It's a must. And another thing I want to mention, that every time I use a brush, it's always on soft, round, pressure, opacity, and flow. Just to make sure that it works with my Wacom tablet and with the Loupedeck. And I think I'm gonna also delete right here where it like moved this hair just a little bit. There we go. So this is the before and after on the liquify. Alright, so that's done. So I'm just gonna merge the layers. I programmed the button on the Loupedeck to do that, to just make it easier for me because I merge the layers all the time. And the next thing we're gonna do is actually do the skin. So here's actually another thing that I like on this little device. You can program these knobs to do like whatever you want. And I programmed one of them to zoom in and out of the image, and just makes it so much easier when you do skin retouch and you want to zoom in and out. My model has like the most perfect skin, but there's few things that we can clean up in here. And just as before, I'm gonna duplicate the layer before I do anything by just clicking this button right here. And lately I've been really liking using the spot healing brush tool for skin retouch and little adjustments, and I do that with different modes. So here on her lips, there's just like few little white flakes, just like some dry skin that I want to take out. So I'm gonna change my mode to darken, and it's pretty much gonna be darkening anything that I apply it to. So here I'm applying it to those little dry skin patches. And the reason why I like this brush tool is because it's actually matching the texture while darkening the areas. So it makes it look very natural. And then while I do that, I also constantly change the size of my brush. And then I'm going to do the same with the darker spots, but I'm going to change the mode to lighten. So now if we have any darker spots, I can lighten them up. Again, like she has really perfect skin, but I can just brighten up a few spots to just clean it up a little bit. And then we can just zoom out and see if there's any spots on the body that needs to be done. We can take out these little two folds, and we can try to do the same here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's try. And then I'll switch it to darken. And another tool I like to use is actually the patch tool for like bigger areas like that. So you can just select this area and then move it to the area where you want to sample it from. I think that actually works better than what I was doing before. So different areas of the skin might need different ways to fix it. Right, what we had before. Okay, so it's a little bit darker in some spots, but we can fix it later with dodge and burn. So I'm just gonna leave it. Okay, other than that, I think it looks good. We can use the knob here to zoom it out. Okay, that looks really great. So I'm just gonna merge the layers, and we're gonna move on now to dodge and burn. So I use my dodge and burn action, and I'm gonna have it available for you guys to download for free in the description of this video. So once you download it, you install it, you'll have this dodge and burn action in your actions window. So I'm gonna play the contrast layer, and it just makes the image black and white and a little bit more contrasting. I'm not gonna talk too much about the dodge and burn in this Photoshop tutorial because I have a full-on tutorial on how I dodge and burn in a separate YouTube video. That video is like 45 minutes long, so I'm not gonna go over that whole thing again in this tutorial. So I'm gonna leave a link to it in the description and you can watch it, and I'm gonna just speed up this process and show you guys the finished result of the dodge and burn. But I just want to remind you again about how easy it is with Loupedeck. So I'm constantly changing the size of my brush when I do dodge and burn, and usually I would go to my keyboard and like press the buttons. But it's really annoying, and especially when I'm working with my tablet, it's just hard to like reach to my keyboard. But with Loupedeck, I have it right beside my tablet, so it's a lot easier to like just change the size of the brush while I'm using the wheel, and then just use my tablet to actually do the dodge and burn and like brush on the highlights and the shadows. So yeah, it just makes it so much easier. If you do a lot of skin retouch, honestly, I would highly recommend you check out Loupedeck and check out their different panels, because it just changed the way I added. And now, like, without this scroll wheel, like, I don't know how I would be doing dodge and burn again. All right, so this is the dodge and burn done. And let me show you the before and after. So this is before and after the dodge and burn. Let me zoom in and show you real quick here on the face. So as you can see, it just makes it look a lot more clean, but it's very subtle still. And with this kind of dodge and burn, you still can see all of the texture that was there before. And this, I usually leave, because if I want to adjust something, I can go back and adjust that. So now the next thing that I would do is I would do some color correcting. And I like to start my color correcting with Camera Raw. So for that, I'm gonna duplicate my layer, my background layer, and then I'm gonna go into Camera Raw. So I can just press here, Camera Raw filter, and it takes me into Camera Raw. And also, I don't know if you've noticed, but it switches my Loupedeck workspace to Camera Raw automatically as well. What's cool about it is that you can assign each knob to change things like temperature and exposure and highlights or texture, and it just makes it so much more precise. So for this one, I assigned temperature. So as you can see, I can like move it around, and I can see if I want to make it warmer or cooler. And it also adjusts exposure here for me, and some other things that I use all the time, like contrast, for example, or highlights. And then you can just do this. It's all touch screen, and it actually gives you more windows. So now this one will adjust tint for me, and vibrance, and dehaze. So you can actually have unlimited amount of these. So this actually adjusts like the highlight on the tone curve. So you can be like super duper precise here, especially if you love using the tone curve. Like these will be a game changer for you. So I did actually make a preset for these pictures. Here it is. And let me just quickly go over the things that I've done. So I just did a little bit of the white balance, so some temperature and the tint change. I did some very basic, like a little bit of exposure, a little bit of contrast, highlight, shadows, some texture, clarity, and dehaze, quite a lot of dehaze, and quite a lot of vibrance. Now, another thing that I did in color grading here, this is something that I do with a lot of images. I give it warm midtones, just a little bit warmer here, and then I give cool shadows and warmer highlights. So here I did a little bit of like a bluish shadow and kind of a yellowy greenish highlight right here. And then when it comes to colors, I did a few things as well. So here is the hue. You can just kind of copy these if you want to create a preset that's exactly the same. And this is what I did to saturation. I didn't do anything to luminance. And then the last thing I did is a little bit of calibration. So just made the blue more saturated, and here's just a little bit on the green primary. So that is the preset that I made, and when I'm going to be editing more of the images from the same set, I can use the same preset on all of them to keep the color more or less the same. I just noticed there's like this thing coming out of the basket. So I'm just going to use the spot healing brush again. And I'm just gonna take that thing. I'm just gonna use normal here, and I'm gonna Bloop it out. Okay, there we go. Alright, next thing, I'm going to be creating some adjustment layers. And the first one, I'm going to just click here and go to levels. So with levels, I'm going to be applying them only to the model. And I want to just kind of make her pop a little bit more from the background. So I'm going to make her brighter. Brighten up here. You don't want to go too crazy. Brighten her up just a little bit more. Yeah, I think that's good. Now I programmed invert to one of my buttons so that it automatically inverts the mask on the layer. I'm also going to just move it to the very top. And so when you invert the mask, now you can grab the brush and you can brush on what you just done only to like specific areas. So now I'm going to brush on that levels adjustment only to my model to make her stand out from my background. And again, I'm just using the wheel to make my brush bigger and smaller as I do this. And then look at the before and after. Do you see how it makes the model kind of stand out from the background? I love doing that. I do it on like all of my images always. So that looks great, and the next adjustment layer that I'm going to use is going to be color balance. This is a great tool for color grading. So I'm going to, let's see, what should we do with the midtones? Should we make it a little bit more warm? Add a little bit of green maybe, or a little bit of pink. I actually think we should add just a little bit of pink here. And just maybe a tiny bit of red and yellow. Just makes her a little bit warmer. But then we're gonna go into shadows. Do you remember I was talking about cool shadows and warm highlights? This is my signature. This is what I like to do. So with shadows, we're gonna give them more of like a bluish, cooler tone. Can give it a little bit of cyan. And then into highlights, we're gonna give them a more yellow and warm tone. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of red. Yes, that looks really good. Let's go into shadows again, and yes, maybe just a little bit less of the cyan. You know, this just takes like a little bit of playing around to see what works best. I think that looks really nice. So let's see the before and after on the color balance. So this is with the color balance. I think it might be just a little bit too much, a little bit too contrasty. So I'm just gonna move the opacity of it down just by 60%. Yeah, that's much better. And another adjustment layer I'm gonna do is a selective color. This is another great tool for color correcting. So I'm going to make the reds a little bit darker. I always love doing it. It just kind of, look at her skin. Look how it makes it pop. Like it makes the shadows pop because we have a lot of reds in the shadows. And we're gonna, let's do white. So this is another one of my little tricks. When you choose white, you can bring it a little bit higher. So it like pops the detail in the skin. Again, here, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna zoom in into her face and then like look at her cheeks. Do you see how the white like pops the details in the skin? Look at that. So I love doing that to give it like three-dimensional look. So we popped the whites just a little bit, and let's give them a little bit of like a yellow color. Yes, that looks amazing. Another trick of mine, adding some color into the black. So we're gonna choose the black and we're gonna give it a little bit of the blue tinge. Look at that. That looks beautiful. You can play around with this as well, like a hazy look if you like that. I'm just gonna keep it contrasting. And then let's go into greens and make them more green. Maybe not too much. Actually, no, I'm gonna keep it at a 0, but what if we add a little bit of yellow into the green? Oh yeah, that's a nice pop. And then let's go into the yellows and make them more yellow as well. And just so that the yellows don't become too green, we're gonna give them a little bit of the red color as well. And you can play around with the darkness too. Ooh, a little bit darker actually looks really nice. All right, that looks beautiful. Let's see the before and after on that. As you can see, it just added like a pop of color. Actually, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to blue and make the blue more vibrant as well. Just like make blue more blue pretty much. And what if I make the blue a little bit brighter too, like whiter? Oh yeah, that looks beautiful. Look at that. That's before and after the selective color. Just makes it pop so much more. And I'm gonna actually do another levels, and I'm gonna bring just the highlights up here and invert, and then brush it on again just on my model. I'm gonna concentrate just on her face this time. Look at that, beautiful. One of the last things that I'm gonna do is some more dodge and burn. So these are my highlight and shadow actions. Again, you can just download them for free. The link will be in the description down below. I'm gonna zoom in and I'm gonna apply them just to like the eyes. And again, I'm using my Loupedeck with the wheel to change the size of the brush. So I'm brushing on the highlights to like the highest points of her face. Pretty much whatever I already see highlight, I just intensify it. So like here on her lips, you saw that beautiful highlight. We're gonna intensify it and make her lips even juicier. Let's make the forehead brighter. And then I always like back it up and like do before and after just to see if I went a little bit overboard with it. Because sometimes I do. I think that looks actually pretty good. Okay. And I can fix some of the dodge and burn as well on the skin right away if I see some spots that need fixing. All right, and then let's zoom in closer again. And then with the shadow, I'm going to make some details stand out more, like the eyebrows. So you can brush it onto the eyebrow. You can brush it alongside the lash line to make that lash line look a little bit darker. I like to do it like around the eye, just to kind of make the eye darker, just like around. And then some around the eyes as well. You can go on the eyelashes. And then I like to go around the lips and underneath the lips. If you intensify the shadow underneath the lip, it just kind of makes it look like she has bigger lips. Because the bigger the lip, the bigger the shadow underneath it. So yeah, that's a little trick. Add a little bit of shadow underneath the lip and it's gonna make it look bigger. Same with this little part right here. If you intensify the shadow here, it just makes it look bigger. You can also intensify like the cheekbone shadow if you want to. Let's do it just a little bit. And you can even go like around the jawline. It's something that I do sometimes, or just around the forehead. It's kind of like makeup. All right, let's see what that looks like. That looks great. And we can do the same on the body, just contour the body a little bit. So I'm gonna apply the shadow just like around where you already naturally see the shadows, around her arm over here. Let's do a little bit on her leg. And we can do the same with the highlight. We can give a highlight a little bit here on the shoulder, right here on the arm, on the leg. All right, that looks great. And the last thing that we can do is do a little bit of color matching of the skin tone. So normally I would create an empty layer and then change the blending mode to color. But I also just programmed that action into my Loupedeck and I have it here color match. So I just click color match and then it just does it for me, which is super easy. So what that does is if we take our little eyedropper tool and we select, like, let's say this color right here, then we can take the brush and we can brush that color onto whatever other areas. So I would say her chest looks a little bit pale. So we can brush on that same color from her arm onto her chest to color match it. And now look at her chest before and after. Do you see? It matches the arm a little bit better in my opinion. And same right here, there's a little bit of a different color match. So we can sample the area here and then we can apply it right here. It's a tiny difference, but overall, again, it makes a huge difference. And let's do the same on her leg because it looks a little bit more pale. So let's just select a color here and brush it on into her leg. Alrighty. And here, let me show you the difference. So this is before and after the color match. It might be a little bit intense, so I'm just going to take the opacity down just by a little bit. Yeah, I think that looks great. All right, so one of the last things we're going to do is sharpen up the image. So I already have a sharpening action. It's pretty much just filter and then sharpen and then unsharp mask. But I just made it into an action and I also now programmed it onto my Loupedeck. So I choose my background copy right here and then I press sharpen and it runs the action for me. And if we zoom in now, you can see that it's very sharp. The sharpen action is like at the max, so I can always go back and like lower the opacity and sharpen it just a little bit. So usually I leave it back at like 50%. Oh, actually, one more thing that we can fix here is because of all of the worm filters that we did, it made her teeth a little bit yellow looking, so we can fix that. I also have a teeth whitening action, but pretty much it's an adjustment layer, hue saturation, and then I take the yellows and I make them light like this. And you can like desaturate them as well. Okay, and then you invert and then you can take a brush and brush it onto whatever area you want. So I'm going to brush it just onto the teeth here. And the same way you can make it into an action and then program your Loupedeck to do this thing for you. So yeah, this is why I love this little thing, because you can program it to do like anything. All right, so this is after the teeth. Yeah, it just makes it look a little bit nicer. Alright, so I think this is the finished result. Let me quickly group these and I'll show you the before and after. So this is before and this is the after. Oh my god. Quite a crazy difference, right? Quite a crazy difference. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please leave this video a like and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description of the video. And huge thanks to Loupedeck for sponsoring today's video and helping out my channel. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!